Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the season premiere of SportsZone. Well, this past Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl 40-22, and they did so in dominating fashion. Here to join with me today is Parker Smith and Griffin Flack. Parker, I'll start with you. What went right for the Eagles, and how did they win this game?
Yeah, Isaiah, this game started and ended with the Chiefs' patchworked offensive line. It had been a problem all season long for them. They had to end up moving their all-pro Joe Thuney from guard out to tackle, and that's just too tough of an ask, especially when playing alongside a guy like Jawan Taylor, who has had his struggles ever since joining in Kansas City 2 years ago. Mahomes had 6 sacks laid on him this game, 11 QB hits, and he faced a pressure rate of 53.3%, second in Super Bowl history only to his own performance back in 2020 when he faced nearly a 60% pressure percentage versus the Bucs. It felt like I was watching that game all over again, and Kansas City never gave their guy a shot.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. That offensive line was horrendous. When they can't get away with holding calls, they're pretty much useless. Vic Fangio didn't blitz a single time in this game, and they still got home with 4 guys, which allowed them to play zone defense and shell coverage. And they had 6 sacks, they had 2 interceptions, like you said, and their inability to protect Patrick Mahomes and get him off his spot. This game reminded me a whole lot of the Bucs-Chiefs game in Super Bowl in 2021, where Todd Bowles was able to dial up defensive pressures with 4 guys and occasionally blitz Patrick Mahomes, and that just created havoc for the rest of the team.
Yeah, no doubt. The defense completely dominated that game. To me, they were also the true MVP, but the Super Bowl MVP was Jalen Hurts after having just a tremendous performance, 221 passing yards, 77 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Griffin, what made his performance so spectacular?
It was his ability to escape the pressure. Like you said, he had the most rushing yards in Super Bowl history by a quarterback. He had what did you say, 72?
77.
77 rushing yards. And he didn't put the ball in harm's way. He made some terrific throws, like the one to Devontae Smith way down the field, a couple to A.J. Brown and Jahan Dotson. So his ability to make those throws, the Chiefs' game plan was to shut down Saquon Barkley, load the box, and force Jalen Hurts to beat them, and he did. But in my opinion, Super Bowl MVP, it shouldn't have been Jalen Hurts. It should have been Vic Fangio if he was able to win it. His ability to only pressure with 4 guys at the line and play shell coverage against Patrick Mahomes, that was just, and Cooper DeJean with the pick 6, Zach Bond with the pick, their ability to pressure Patrick Mahomes, that was a masterclass by Vic Fangio.
Yeah, it definitely was. And Parker, back to the Eagles here. It seemed like the Chiefs' biggest strength on defense was their blitzing and how great Steve Magnolia has been. But really throughout that entire game, it really didn't seem like Jalen Hurts was touched at all. So how do you think the Eagles' offensive line really played and helped Hurts win?
Yeah, the Eagles MVP, along with their defensive line, was the MVP of this game. And, Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP, but Isaiah, that's just a quarterback award. We all know that the defense was the real reason they won, and the offensive line. The guy had time to bake a cake back there in the pocket. It was unbelievable. If you switch Jalen Hurts out with 25 out of the 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, the Eagles still win that game in a dominant fashion, in my opinion. Jalen Hurts, he played a fine game, threw an interception, but was pretty much perfect most of the way there. But it's pretty easy when you're just standing back there for 7 seconds like the nonchalant Cam Ward in college just waiting. Is anyone going to get open? Yeah, they are, because I literally have so much time to throw the football. And Mahomes didn't have that same, type of offensive line performance. And it's really disappointing that that's what the narrative is going to be pushed going forward, is that, Mahomes choked and he didn't do this. But in reality, we all know the reason why the Eagles won that game is because of offense and defensive line play.
Yeah, for sure. Patrick Mahomes did not have the performance he wanted to have, as we've seen in past 3 Super Bowl performances where he's come away with the MVP. So let's talk about his performance and how that might be perceived in the future. Obviously, on paper, it's great. 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, but you look at the turnovers and you look at how many times he got sacked, and you have to wonder, will this hurt his case as the GOAT going forward?
Yeah, and it absolutely will, because we all know that the narrative when it comes to this type of stuff is pushed by the people that don't really know ball. The needle is moved by the majority of the population that are just going to look at the box score, look at the numbers, and say, oh man, Mahomes, 2 interceptions in the first half. What a horrible performance. Brady would never. Yeah, okay. The guy was pressured on over 50% of his snaps, and they didn't have to blitz a single time. Football is a numbers game. If you can match up 5 players on 4 players and 4 wins every time with 7 in the back covering, what do you think is going to be the outcome of the game, especially with a defense as talented as this Eagles secondary has been, especially with the rising star Cooper DeJean making that great play, Zach Bond, a linebacker with excellent hands, making a play, giving the offense a free touchdown in the red zone. I mean, it's really going to hurt Mahomes' GOAT campaign, but at the same time, you have to look at it this way. Mahomes is still miles above Brady when they were the same age. Both were 3-2 at the Super Bowl before the age of 30 years old, and Mahomes' numbers, I mean, they widely gap a guy like Tom Brady. So to just say that the race is completely over yet is, in my opinion, outlandish.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I don't think this hurt Mahomes' case at all. If he won, it could only elevate it. I don't think this hurt his performance. This was kind of Mahomes' 2011 LeBron performance, but he didn't really choke like LeBron, but it was such a just disaster that Mahomes can only learn from this and build from this, and the Chiefs and Andy Reid, through their first 96 games, Mahomes and Brady, Mahomes has the same amount of Super Bowls, he has more All-Pros, Pro Bowls, more passing yards, more everything in every category than Brady. So if he won this, it would have only helped elevate his GOAT case, but him losing this doesn't hurt it at all, in my opinion.
I mean, see, this is where I kind of have to disagree with you because obviously it's going to hurt the campaign because, if he three-peats this game, then we're looking at this in an entirely different scenario. In my opinion, Mahomes would have cemented the GOAT campaign last night had they won that game. Tom Brady never three-peated, and to win 4 Super Bowls in 6 years would have been completely unheard of. Now, does he still have the opportunity later on in the future to make up that ground on Brady? Sure, but last night it hurts a whole lot, and it really frustrates me as a Mahomes fan personally because it wasn't his fault.
Exactly.
Yeah. Going back to his GOAT case here, he still has a great chance. His window's still open, but the Chiefs might have some moving parts this offseason. Travis Kelce has contemplated retirement. Andy Reid's getting up there in age. So, Parker, I'm going to go back to you here. What can the Chiefs do to get back to the Super Bowl these next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, and the answer is very obvious. It starts with the offensive tackles. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous that the best quarterback in the history of football is having to play with an offensive line that looks like they couldn't block a middle schooler. It was absolutely pitiful what I was watching last night. The guy got pressure on over 50% of snaps without being blitzed one time. That is the main problem with this team right now, is that they can't protect the quarterback. Now, obviously, with a guy like Rashee Rice coming back next season, that's going to help open things up for him a little bit down the field, able to hit some more deep shots when you have a guy that's coming over the middle and can take some coverage away from somebody like Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown if we re-sign him. But the offensive tackle play certainly has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I agree. The offensive line play has to be better. Trey Smith is a free agent, and I don't think he comes back to the team. So they're either going to have to draft at the end of the first round, they're going to have to draft an offensive lineman. And I think Kelce will return for one more year, but they need another weapon. Kelce, he had like 4 catches. He's not his same dominant, greatest tight end of all time himself. He hasn't been himself for like 2 years now. So they need another weapon, offensive line. The defense is fine. Spags will get that defense right. You got to protect Patrick Mahomes so he has as much time as Jalen Hurts. If he had as much time as Jalen Hurts, then obviously it's a much different ballgame.
All right, that's going to wrap up our Super Bowl talk. Stay tuned for next block where we talk about Luka's debut in Los Angeles.
There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and is hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up.
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs. There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and is hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up.
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs.
Welcome back into SportsZone. Tonight, Luka Doncic makes his Los Angeles Lakers debut tonight at 9:30 on ESPN. Here to talk about it with me is Jai Mitchell and Nick Forrester. Now, there are a lot of questions still about this trade. We still haven't really felt the true aftershock of what this trade means for the NBA. So, Jai, I'm going to start with you. How will Luka look as a Los Angeles Laker?
I feel like Luka Doncic will be very good with the Lakers. It will allow LeBron to play off ball a little bit more. It will take the stress off of not just LeBron, but the rest of the team. Scoring load with Luka Doncic being an excellent playmaker.
Yeah. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that I would definitely agree. I mean, I think now this is the first season where you've really seen LeBron sort of accept that he's going to be a second option. That was already happening with AD, and I think with Luka, that's just going to happen even more. The one thing about Luka compared to AD is that he is going to be on ball a lot more. It's going to give LeBron a lot of open threes. This year he's shooting 39%. Last year he's shooting 41%. So this is probably the best LeBron's ever shot in his career from a consistent basis from way back deep from the three-point line. It's also going to help people like Austin Reeves, the other guards, because there's going to be so much more attention on the guards. And any team is going to need a lot of perimeter defense to beat them.
Yeah, for sure. Nick, I'm going to go back to you with this question. Luka has played really a heliocentric style of basketball. He really dominates the ball whenever he's touching it. So do you think that an off-ball Luka Doncic can work while LeBron is still a Laker?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all comes down to if he's going to knock down his shots. One thing about Luka, he shoots 35% from three, so it's not great, it's not terrible either. So I think it all comes down to whether or not he's going to make those threes. LeBron is really well known for sort of driving in and giving those kick-out passes, sorry. So it comes down to that, but I think at the end of the day, I think it should be Luka's team. So I think he should be the one on ball, and I think it's time for LeBron to really sort of accept that position as the second option and take that role.
Jai, what about you?
I feel like with just having Luka in the play with LeBron, it's not only good for Lakers right now, but also for the future, because LeBron is 40 right now. So I feel like this move was overall just great for the Lakers to just keep the transition going with just knowing that after LeBron leaves, they have another star to rely on.
Yeah, as we wait for Luka's debut tonight, we already had a debut right here in Dallas. Anthony Davis made a huge impact right out the gate for the Dallas Mavericks. I believe 26 points, 12 boards, 7 assists. Huge game for Anthony Davis in his debut. Jai, how do you think Anthony Davis looked?
I feel like Anthony Davis just looked dominant. I mean, he just showed that when he's healthy, he's a top 10 player in the league. He was just able to get anything he wanted offensively. He was dominant even though he only played 3 quarters. I just feel like that was a very great sign for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think, Nick, the offense looked without Luka and now Anthony Davis as the focal point?
Well, I actually really liked the sort of, I guess, the way that the team was lined out. AD at the 4, that's going to be, that's where he's at his best at. You know what I mean? We haven't really seen that since 2020, which is when the Lakers did win the championship. So since then, they've been struggling to get a proper big man to be played next to AD. But, I mean, the Mavericks have that with Lively and Gafford. My one worry about AD is, he's great when he's healthy, but he's never healthy. And you have to question Nico Harrison because, I mean, at the end of the day, one of the main concerns about Luka was health concerns. And guess what? Now you have AD, who is even worse. He's literally known for being Anthony Day-to-Day Davis. We never know when he's going to be healthy. And, yeah, that's my biggest worry. I think if they are healthy, the Mavs have a legitimate shot at winning the chip and winning it all this year. But that's a big if.
Yeah, we'll go back to that injury. Anthony Davis, according to ESPN, will be out indefinitely with a groin injury. He's already been ruled out of the All-Star game. Kyrie Irving has just been announced as the All-Star replacement for him. So with Anthony Davis having these durability concerns, do you think that's going to be a big deal, Nick, for the Mavericks moving down the stretch of the season?
I mean, yeah, it's going to be the biggest deal. I mean, it seemed from this game, I know Kyrie wasn't playing too well, but it seemed like they were leaning towards AD being the first option, which I'm not against because we've never really seen that. We had glimpses of it in 2020, and arguably he was Finals MVP. But that's just an argument, I guess. But I am a big fan of that. But at the same time, again, with his health issues, it is a risk. And Kyrie has been struggling with consistency at times. So there are definitely some asterisks, but if the Mavericks can pull it all together, if AD can stay healthy, if Kyrie can be consistent, then I definitely think they have a great chance at winning the whole thing this year.
Yeah, the Mavericks, last time with Luka, before they traded him, they were slipping in the standings while he was out with injury. How do you think the Mavs can bounce back from that type of injury to this one with AD, Jai?
With AD being out, I feel like it's going to kind of be more focused on Kyrie Irving to kind of lead the team. But I feel like as long as they can kind of stay afloat, get to the All-Star break, I feel like they'll be okay for the second half of the season.
Yeah, right now they are floating right near play-in contention, so it's going to be a huge stretch of the year for the Mavericks. Let's talk about where they stand in the Western Conference. A lot of great teams. This past Sunday, they just beat one of the better teams in the Houston Rockets. So with Anthony Davis as their best player, Nick, where do you think they stand in the West, and can they make it out?
Well, I mean, to be honest, yeah, I do. I think if all their pieces are healthy, if you have people like Max Christie,
Jai, what are your thoughts?
I feel like with just having Anthony Davis and also being able to have him at the 4 is going to help Dallas just tremendously because, let's just be honest, we haven't seen the Dallas Mavericks have a dominant big man like that since Dirk Nowitzki. And it also kind of let AD control the pace and just be dominant like how he was in his debut.
yeah, to go back. I think that other players as well also need to step up. I mean, Max Christie in the deal, he had a big performance over the weekend. Also, people like Najee Marshall, especially during this time period where AD's going to be out and there's going to be games that he misses too, just because of how he is and the player he is. Those guys need to step up, and those guys are going to be really important. But if it all comes together, I think, honestly, them, the Thunder, possibly the Lakers, we need to see how that works out. And then, obviously, the Nuggets, with their experience, I think those are the teams to beat within the West.
I think the big picture for Dallas right now is, can they win the championship? They have a great roster, but their window is just so small with Anthony Davis. So, Jai, straight up, can they win the NBA championship?
I feel like that's pretty tough right now, just looking at how tough the league is right now. I don't feel like right now they will be able to win because you still have to go through teams like Denver. You still have to go through teams like OKC. So I just feel like it would be very tough with them just having to plug in Anthony Davis very late in the season, with just expecting them to just win it all right away.
Yeah, Nick?
Well, I think in terms of getting out of the West, I think if healthy, they have as good a chance as anyone. I would have them, maybe OKC. They would be my top 2 teams. I don't think the Nuggets quite have maybe the sort of versatility and the depth that they did have when they won that championship. You look at the likes of like Bruce Brown and other players that they lost. Those are big losses. But my issue is that the East is not as competitive. They do have those top 3 teams, but they're just not as good. So I think someone out the East is probably going to win it, take it all.
Yeah, only time will tell. Coming up next, we will talk about big news in boxing.
Craving something fresh, flavorful, and made just for you? Look no further than Avesta, your go-to destination for a delicious, full-service dining experience. Dive into our customizable omelets, expertly crafted by our talented cook Jonathan, who guarantees every bite is perfection. All our dishes are handmade, prepared with only the freshest ingredients. Explore our assembly line where you can choose from any of our globally inspired dishes, or customize your plate. It's that easy. And let's not forget dessert. Indulge your sweet tooth with treats from Clark Bakery. With convenient payment methods including card or flex, it's the perfect dining spot for any occasion. Quench your thirst with our wide selection of drinks. Just hand your drinking card to our friendly waiter, and they'll bring your beverage of choice right to your table. When you're done savoring every last bite, our attentive staff will whisk away your tray. Enjoy the peaceful ambiance as you dine in, or use our takeout option for a meal on the go. Avesta.
Welcome back in the Sports Zone. One of boxing's biggest names, Canelo Alvarez, has agreed to a new 4-fight deal. that will basically set up a super fight against another one of boxing's biggest stars. Here to talk about that with me today is Gunnar Talbot and Mason Branham. Now let's talk about this fight with Terrence Bud Crawford, the undefeated Terrence Bud Crawford. This fight will take place on September 13th in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. So Gunnar, I will start with you. What's the overview of this fight? Because it's going to be a big one.
Well, I'll first like to start out. Thank you for this fight. It got us out of having to see Canelo and Jake Paul, which I do not want to see. And this, this is a classic super mega fight. It's what the Middle East puts on these days. Great fights. It is a little bit of a weird one because Canelo usually weighs in about 15 pounds heavier. I know his last weigh-in was around 167, 168, while Crawford's last time he weighed in was closer to like 157, 152s. So, and also Canelo is the younger fighter by about 3 years. He's the taller fighter. So a lot of things go in Canelo's favor here, but I'm expecting a great fight.
Yeah, Mason and you?
Yeah, I definitely think kind of that weight difference is going to play into it. There, a lot of people say this is one of the reasons why there are weight classes in boxing, but I'd still think Crawford with that, even with the size, a little bit of a size mismatch, I think he's still going to be up a good fight. Again, he's 40-0 for good reason. And I think one advantage he's going to have is he has a little bit higher of a reach or more of reach than Alvarez, so I definitely think that's going to help him. But yeah, no, this is definitely going to be a great fight.
See, with the reach thing, Canelo, he's always kind of had a small reach for his weight class, and I think it almost plays into his advantage because he's fought so many fighters. He's been doing this his whole career, fighting fighters with longer reaches, so he's kind of has that Mike Tyson-esque thing about him. He can get in the pocket, takes a shot to get in there, but once he gets in there, he does damage.
Yeah, for sure. This will be one of the biggest fights in recent years, and I'll talk about that for boxing as a whole. We've kind of had a weird year so far for boxing, obviously, with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson starting things off on Netflix. So with this super fight, with two of boxing's biggest names, Mason, what will this mean for the sport?
I just think, again, kind of like what Gunnar said, with the fallout of the Jake Paul fight, I think this is just one of your true, just big fight feels. You got two of the best going toe-to-toe. You got stars in the making and already made going at it. So I just think this is going to help grow the sport, but I definitely think, again, this is going to be a great fight.
And what I'm glad for is finally fights between top competition. For the longest time, there was just like fighters had protected records where they didn't want to fight. That's why Crawford's undefeated, right? He has fought some good names in the past, but his first like 25 fights were against people you've never heard of. And then about last year or 2 years ago, ever since the Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, that really opened up the door to like, hey, let's make the biggest and best fights. And that's what we have again. We had those fights. We had Tyson Fury, Usyk, and now we have this one. So it's just good you finally getting to see the stars fight.
Yeah, it's great to see a lot of the big names back in boxing here. But Canelo still has 3 fights left for his 4-year deal. So there are a lot of big names who can still fill that list. So Gunnar, who do you want to see Canelo fight?
Canelo needs to fight David Benavidez, all right? If he does not fight Benavidez soon, he's definitely ducking. He's already ducking because last year they offered him the Benavidez fight. You know how much money they offered him? They offered him $95 million for one fight. And you know what he said? They have to pay me $200 million. This is essentially the Tom Aspinall, John Jones of boxing, right? David Benavidez, he doesn't want to fight him, even though Benavidez is in his weight class, 28, undefeated, knockout artist. I'm not saying Canelo can't win. I'll probably pick Canelo to win that fight. But that's a true fight. Like, no one wants to see you fight Jake Paul. No one wants to see you fight. His last 2 opponents have been also undersized and older. Crawford's a good mega fight, undersized and older. And now after this, he's like, oh, I want to fight Jake Paul or something because it's another easy payday. But this is like the test fight. But he's kind of running right now.
Mm-hmm. Mason?
I know I've heard there's kind of been talks with one of the next fights being against William Skull. He's the IBF World Super Middleweight Champion. I've heard a couple of people talking about that fight, but I also think he'll be a good fight. But again, I think the Benavidez fight, that'll be great. I think that's going to be a fight. One fight I would love to see, Alvarez versus McGregor. We have been talking about this fight for years. It has been, so many people have talked about it. There's been dream matches, dream fights. That has been one of the dream fights. And I think also, I know he's a little bit older, but a Mayweather rematch. You know, going into that Mayweather fight originally, there was a lot, you know, that was kind of the fight that kind of made Alvarez, you know, start becoming one of the most popular fighters. So I think that kind of helped. So that would be nice. But again, I think the Benavidez fight and the McGregor fight, those would be my top two.
I would rather see Canelo fight boxers. Just to disagree with Mason a little bit. Why Conor McGregor? That's a cool fight, but Conor McGregor already lost to Mayweather, and Mayweather beat Canelo when Mayweather's 38 and Canelo's 24. And you have good luck trying to find McGregor right now sober. So he's kind of even fighting the UFC, and he's got 2 fights to deal with that. And you think he's going to somehow do this? Like, he's been trying to fight Manny Pacquiao, Michael Chandler. He's trying to fight everyone. So I don't really. That would be a cool fight because, you know, I'm Irish. I want to see Conor McGregor, but I don't know if it would be a good fight. I think Canelo would just box the brakes off him.
Yeah, certainly a lot of outside the name box we're kind of thinking about here. And one of them that's been brought up a couple times by y'all is Jake Paul. There was a deal that was almost in place for Canelo Alvarez to fight Jake Paul, but it fell through at the last minute. So Mason, what do you think about that deal, and why do you think this fight didn't go through?
Well, I think the main reason why the fight didn't go through was because of the Saudi deal. You know, I think whenever Canelo saw the Saudi deal, he was like, I'm taking that. And don't get me wrong, I will give credit where credit is due. Jake Paul has proved me wrong and has shown that he's a great boxer. However, I still think Alvarez is just way too high level boxer for Jake. I just think, you know, Jake, yeah, he brings the entertainment value, he brings in the big money, he brings in a lot of views and, you know, attention. But I just think Alvarez for a fight, I don't know. I just don't really see it happening. But if it does happen, I think it would be a good fight.
Mason's a better man than me, all right? He'll give Jake Paul more credit than I will. Sadly, yes, this fight is probably going to happen because I think it's a why not for Canelo. Like, why not? He's definitely a better boxer than Jake Paul. Jake Paul still, I know we've been saying it for years now, and it's kind of crazy we've been saying it for years because how many boxing fights has he fought? He is still yet to fight an actual boxer his age, his weight. He's fought old UFC fighters, NBA stars, YouTubers. The last 2 boxers he actually did box were no-name fighters that were 38 years old. All right? Jake Paul has done nothing to prove to him that we should give him this fight at all. Now, in saying that, he's going to get the fight. All right? Canelo, why not? It's a money fight. He can make a quick $150 million for just beating up a YouTuber.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jake Paul is going to get that fight eventually. And really, time will tell just how big that fight will be because I think a lot of money will be involved. Gunnar, quick thoughts here. When do you think that fight will happen?
That fight, depending on how the Crawford fight goes, it could happen as soon as next year.
Next year. Mason?
I would say a little bit longer. I think until probably after the Saudi deal. I would wait till then because I think just the Saudi deal. But after that, yeah.
My one more caveat with that fight, though, is Jake Paul weighs about 200 pounds. So I don't know what weight this is going to be at.
All right. That's going to do it for our boxing talk. Coming up next, we talk about UNT men's basketball back in the win column.
Has this ever happened to you?
My bike! My bike is gone!
Stolen bikes are an epidemic sweeping college campuses across America.
What am I supposed to do?
It's quite simple. The We Mean Green Fund has partnered with the UNT Police Department to offer free bike locks to any UNT student with a bike. Just show up with your bike in tow and ask.
Now I'll never lose my bike ever again.
Enough worrying. Get your bike lock today.
Craving something fresh, flavorful, and made just for you? Look no further than Avesta, your go-to destination for a delicious, full-service dining experience. Dive into our customizable omelets, expertly crafted by our talented cook Jonathan, who guarantees every bite is perfection. All our dishes are handmade, prepared with only the freshest ingredients. Explore our assembly line where you can choose from any of our globally inspired dishes, or customize your plate. It's that easy. And let's not forget dessert. Indulge your sweet tooth with treats from Clark Bakery. With convenient payment methods including card or flex, it's the perfect dining spot for any occasion. Quench your thirst with our wide selection of drinks. Just hand your drinking card to our friendly waiter, and they'll bring your beverage of choice right to your table. When you're done savoring every last bite, our attentive staff will whisk away your tray. Enjoy the peaceful ambiance as you dine in, or use our takeout option for a meal on the go. Avesta.
Welcome back in the Sports Zone. Joining me today is Gabe Ive and Christina Orozco. Now, UNT's men's basketball was back on the court, and to do so, we sent our own Seth Wickman to cover the game.
David Hermes up against Sissoko, gets around him. That will be a battle all night, and Herman, Massey, and Latrell.
The Mean Green men's basketball had to fight to keep their spot in the standings on Saturday. The Tulane Green Wave came to the Super Pit for an attempt to overtake third place in the American Athletic Conference. This game was crucial for North Texas to get back to their identity since they lost their last 2 games.
The game plan in general was just to do what we do and get back to our defensive identity. We didn't really have it dialed in on one player. We just wanted to get back to playing good defense.
The team fulfilled their goal of playing good defense, recording 25 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. But another focal point the team planned on pursuing was being shot ready.
If you can step into it and shoot it, and shoot it with confidence. And I felt like that messaging helps, so you're not trying to read between the lines. Does coach want me to shoot this shot, or does he not want me to shoot this shot?
UNT sunk a season-best 11 shots from deep. And a successful day of three-pointers also gives opportunity for open lanes in the paint.
And then when you're shot ready, that also opens up drives, which I thought we did a good combination of moving the ball, because they can definitely stagnate you at times with the zone, but we moved the ball, we were ready to shoot, and when we couldn't shoot, we drove it with some authority.
UNT ended up beating Tulane 76-66. For NTTV Sports, I'm Seth Wickman.
Thank you to Seth for that coverage. Now, this game was huge for UNT as they jumped back right where they want to be in the American Conference standings. So we'll go to Gabe here. Gabe, how big was this win for UNT?
This was a huge win, not only for the standings, which was huge for the standings because it got them solidified into third place, which with the 2 recent losses, you need to get that top 4 bid. And so this game was huge. The Mean Green got out to a hot start. It was just a big win overall. Great day for the Mean Green.
And Christina?
Yeah, like he said, it really pushed them in the conference. It really solidifies their confidence, and then for the rest of the games that they play with the lower half of the team in the standings, it obviously shows their offense, but especially I know that Coach Hodge said that they played against one of the most efficient defenses in the league, and I think that proves to show that how they'll face against the other teams later on.
Yeah, that's a big deal for UNC because they're one of the lowest scoring teams in the conference, and scoring 76 points against one of the better teams is great for them, great for their morale the rest of the year. Christina, I'll go back to you here. They do have kind of a lighter schedule this next half of the season. So do you think they can really make a push here for the American Conference throne?
Yes, I think it's going to be key to face these lower half teams like Rice, Tulsa, Wichita State, and Charlotte. If they don't win against these teams, then how are they going to face against teams like South Florida and Florida Atlantic, which are still in the midfield of the standings, but still we need those key wins against those lower half teams because where else will we be?
I'm sorry, I have to disagree here. We aren't getting the American Conference throne. We aren't getting first place. Listen, I love the Mean Green. I think this team has a lot of potential. We're not, in terms of the regular season, if that's what you're asking us about, Memphis isn't losing 2 more games. And still, they'd have the tiebreaker even if they did. UAB, I could see us finishing ahead of depending on how we finish and how they finish. But because with our recent loss to them, they're currently second. Andy Kennedy always seems to get his teams going at the right time. I really don't think we are. Listen, I think with the slide this past couple games, it's great to bounce back Saturday. I really think it showed what the potential of this team is. But I think this past month of basketball has really made me realize that this team is just inconsistent, that we'll have good, we shot 45% from 3 against Tulane. That's fantastic. But we're going to have to do that because of our slow pace. We're going to have to shoot the ball well. And we need consistent great guard play, which up until Saturday, we hadn't seen in about 3 or 4 weeks, even in our wins. Just consistently great guard play, especially down the stretch. So I don't think we can get the throne.
Yeah, a lot of pessimism coming from your side, Gabe. They did drop 2 games right before this huge win against UTSA and the UAB. Those were huge games to lose. So what do you think the biggest issues were in those 2 games, and can they be fixed before March?
I'll have to go back to guard play. I don't want to keep on harping on that, but especially down the stretch, we had so much poor decision making, especially in that UTSA game. Jasper Floyd down the stretch really stuck out to me. You know, Adam Wright made a couple poor shot decisions, I guess is the best way to phrase that, down the stretch. You know, the whole team really, they need to keep on getting Brennan Lorient the ball. I think he's shown to be fantastic. But in those losses, you can't rely on a big man. You have to have guards make plays down the stretch. And we just, in those 2 losses, especially UAB and UTSA, we didn't have that happen. And I really think that's a key reason why we lost those games.
Christina?
Right, I agree on the inconsistency. The UNT has had super narrow margins within their games, both wins and losses. So I think it's going to come down to kind of last-minute game awareness, you know, awareness of their fouls and their possessions, and then timing their timeouts right. I think, again, it's going to be key in that last half of what they're doing. Even minor fixes, I think that will lead to the long gameplay of the game as a whole, and just being aware of little things that they can fix in order to win in that last half.
And one of those other little things is turnovers.
Yeah.
Turnovers have been killer for this team because of their slow pace. They're one of the slowest teams in KenPom with the whole NCAA Division I. And when you're turning it over, I believe against UAB, I could be wrong. I think they turned it over around 15 times. And so you just can't win games when you don't have a lot of possessions, and when you do have possessions, you're turning over the ball. And so that's a killer, you know, when your guards aren't hitting key shots at the end of the games, and also you aren't adept to pressure. You know, we've seen the Mean Green struggle a lot against the press this year, and that's going to lead to turnovers. And so when you don't have tons of possessions, and those possessions are getting taken away because of turnovers, it's going to kill you every time.
Yeah, I want to go back to style of play here. You mentioned that they do play a slower paced game, and it might be good for the regular season, but come playoff time, it could be an issue. So with the tournament not so far away, can their style of play be enough to win the conference tournament?
I don't think so. I think you go up against a team like Memphis, who we gave a great fight back in January up in Memphis, and we took them right to the brink. But I think when you go up against a team like them, you know, who's first in the conference at three-point shooting, you know, you see their offensive rating is 4th while we're last. You know, I think we're such different styles of play that holding them all 40 minutes is just so tough to consistently do. And then you see with the loss against UAB, you'll most likely also have to play them and have to face Yaxel Lindenberg, who we were able to hold down for the most part. But collectively, I think both of those teams just have some guys that we just aren't really equipped to ultimately handle.
Hey, Christina?
Yeah, I think I have to agree. And I think one thing that they're going to have to focus on as well is their aggressiveness and asserting that sort of threat with teams like Memphis. You know, we kind of saw that with Tulane, and that kind of worked with them. But just asserting that they're ready to play and that they're going to be aggressive both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of challenges coming up here for the Mean Green. So coming up, we had a lot of fun with the Super Bowl, so now we're going to talk about the best Super Bowl halftime shows.
Hey Alex, this guy on the internet says he wants to give me money.
That sounds suspicious.
What do you mean?
Typically, strangers who promise you money on the internet have their own best interest in mind. They often use bounce checks, which will disappear shortly after depositing, but not before they've asked for some money in return.
So he doesn't really want to spoil me?
No.
Well, then what should I do?
The best way to handle it is to block and report the suspicious message, or even consult local law enforcement if you've already fallen victim.
So I guess we aren't going to Key West for spring break.
No.
There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and it's hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up!
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs.
Looking to open a free checking or savings account but don't know where to start? Check out DebtQ Credit Union right here on campus. Get your Mean Green debit card instantly or apply for a DebtQ Visa credit card today. Your school, your card. Plus, make deposits at their 24/7 ATM, checks or cash whenever you need it. Make sure to sign up for DebtQ's online banking platform and mobile app for easy access anytime, anywhere. Visit them at www.datq.org to learn more. DatQ, the official financial institution of UNT Athletics.
Has this ever happened to you?
My bike! My bike is gone!
Stolen bikes are an epidemic sweeping college campuses across America.
What am I supposed to do?
It's quite simple. The We Mean Green Fund has partnered with the UNT Police Department to offer free bike locks to any UNT student with a bike. Just show up with your bike in tow and ask.
Now I'll never lose my bike ever again.
Enough worrying. Get your bike lock today.
Welcome back in the Sports Zone. Now, to close things out, just like Kendrick Lamar, we're going to shut down the show with the Super Bowl halftime show discussion here. And here to talk about it with me today is Ian Crawford, Q Cherry, and Grace Grimes. Now, I believe you guys have come up with a list of your top 3 favorite halftime shows. So, Ian, I'm going to start with you. What is your top 3?
Yes, my top 3 is number 3, The Weeknd, number 2, Beyonce, and number 1, recency bias be damned, Kendrick Lamar.
And why is Kendrick your number 1? I mean, it just happened last night, but that seems a little quick.
I know it does, and again, there is some recency bias, but I've always been a fan of Kendrick's music, and I do think as the 2020s have progressed, the Rock Nation shows have like really tailored to the broadcast, and with Kendrick, we saw that done to perfection. I mean, just the camera movements, the close shots. We didn't need these huge sweeping shots of the stadium. We were able to go small down to these almost tiny scenes, but it was much more interesting than I think just a wide shot of a million dancers. Even though the choreography in this was amazing, I do feel like one of the reasons this worked is that every movement was intentional, every tiny vocal inflection was intentional. All the commentary between Kendrick and the backup dancers, which is something we haven't really seen before, that was intentional. You could tell Kendrick was just locked in throughout this entire show.
Yeah, have to agree. It's already one of my favorites for sure. Q, what is your top 3?
Top 3, starting from bottom. Number 3 is Rihanna's Super Bowl halftime show. Number 2 is Bruno Mars, and number 1 is Dr. Dre and a whole rap West Coast coming out to pop out and have fun.
Yeah, for sure. Already 2 Kendrick mentions. Kendrick was in that Dr. Dre show. What makes Dr. Dre your number 1 Super Bowl?
Dr. Dre, I'm a Cali kid. My family are from California, so anything West Coast, that's me. And plus, you have 50 Cent doing pull-ups for no reason underneath the stage. You can't see that and say that's not hard. And that's definitely Kendrick Lamar's best Super Bowl performance.
Ooh, controversy.
His best. I mean, comparison to what, the 8 songs he played last night to the 2? That makes it better?
Yes.
Answer. What about Eminem in that performance? How did he do to you?
Eminem, Lose Yourself, definitely my favorite part of the halftime show. I don't know Eminem that well, but I definitely sung Lose Yourself word for word, bar for bar, like it was 8 Mile. Is it 8 Mile?
Yeah, it's 8 Mile.
All right, sounds great, Q. Grace, I'm going to go to you. What is your top 3 Super Bowl halftime shows?
So my list is a little bit different than theirs. My number 1 is Lady Gaga. I feel like she's just a girl boss, and that Super Bowl definitely was like very iconic, and it definitely was meme worthy. Katy Perry is my number 2. I feel like everyone knows about the Dancing Sharks, and if you think of Katy Perry's Super Bowl, that's exactly what you think of when she was singing California Girls. And then my number 3 is Rihanna. Like, again, she was pregnant during that performance, and she just absolutely killed it, and all of her background dancers killed it as well. So I thought those definitely were my top 3.
I mean, I personally felt a little underwhelmed by Rihanna's performance. I know she was pregnant, but, you know, I could have felt it was more. So is there any other reason why you think it was number 1 on your list?
So Rihanna was number 3 on my list, but just to like defend her a little bit, I was a dancer growing up, and so I know like their costumes might not have been like super extravagant. Like obviously Rihanna was in red and the other backup dancers were wearing all white, but I feel like it gave the background performers a time to shine just because like their costumes were plain so their dancing could really shine through. I know in other Super Bowls, like in Lady Gaga's and Katy Perry's, the dancers were kind of in elaborate costumes, so I feel like yes, they were dancing, but the costumes can kind of take away from that. So I think in Rihanna's Super Bowl, it really gave the dancers a time to shine.
I want to talk about what I think is the greatest Super Bowl halftime show of all time. And it was missing from all of your lists. Coldplay, Beyonce, Bruno Mars.
That was my honorable mention. That was mine, yeah.
I think it's the best. You take the Coldplay, just their whole tribute to the Super Bowl halftime show. You have Beyonce and Bruno Mars kind of facing off with each other. What do you think? Ian, what do you think of my list?
I mean, I don't hate the Coldplay show. It definitely has a lot of cool stuff. Like you said, I love the tribute, but it does have a couple issues. Mainly, it's in San Francisco. That's where they were doing it. And I get why it had to be sunny out. They're not going to air the game at 10 p.m. New York time. But it does diminish the impact. Also, it just kind of isn't a Coldplay show. Like, yeah, they're the headliner. They get the first few songs, but all anyone talks about with that is Beyonce and Bruno Mars, and that's for good reason. Like, I love Coldplay. I do think Viva La Vida is one of the greatest songs ever made, but they just don't have the stage presence that Bruno and Beyonce do.
Yeah, Q?
I want to be honest and say what everyone's thinking. Coldplay was boring. I was on my iPad playing whatever jetpack joyride I was on, just waiting for them to be over and for the real halftime show and Bruno and Beyonce to finally start. Because, oh my goodness, I can't explain how palpable my boredom was watching Coldplay, just music in general. I don't like Coldplay, if you can't already tell. I think they're boring, plain, and simple.
What about you, Grace?
I'm gonna disagree a little bit and be a Coldplay defender just a tiny bit. I think that Coldplay can be for all ages, and like I feel like it's 2016, so like of course like Coldplay is gonna be in the Super Bowl at that time. They had like a lot of popular songs during that time, and I feel like it was kind of like an opening for Beyonce and Bruno Mars's high energy performance. And at the end of that performance, they were like kind of unified, and like there were like people from the crowd at the end, and the song they were singing like just expressed like unity. So I think it was a good performance. I think y'all are hating for no reason, so I think it was good.
I don't hate it. I just think there are better ones.
Oh, there's no think. There's better ones.
Yeah, I think a couple names we were missing here were some of the ones from the 90s. You had some people consider Prince, the Michael Jackson performances, those to be the greatest Super Bowls of all time. So why weren't they on y'all's list, Ian?
Yeah, I do think we have to address the elephant in the room because everyone does consider the Prince one the best. Now, I don't hate the Prince one. It's very good, but it's a relic of its time. And I do think that over the years, these have evolved to be more friendly to the broadcast. Like I said, that was what made Kendrick's show so good. With Prince, it's basically just a normal concert. It's a very powerful normal concert, especially when he sings Purple Rain in the pouring downpour. But he only does 4 songs, and he just doesn't have the stage presence of Beyonce or Gaga or even maybe Katy Perry. The normal concerts can be good. Like, maybe it's just personal bias, but one of my favorites is Bruce Springsteen. But, yeah, I do get why someone would say Prince is their favorite. It's just not for me, just based on where the show has gone.
So there's not an everyone for me. Everyone doesn't appreciate Prince. I'm a part of the everyone. But MJ, Michael Jackson, straight aura, just posing, just letting everyone bask in the glory. That is an honorable mention. Like maybe number 4 or 5 in honorable mentions, but Prince isn't in like anyone's top 10.
Well, none of ours, but definitely a lot of people's.
The only reason those two are not in my top 10 is because
obviously I wasn't watching it, so I can't really watching it in real time, so I can't really speak on it. But I mean, obviously Michael Jackson and Prince are two iconic people. I just think and they were good for the time, but I just think now with technology evolving and stage presence, I think that over time there have been some better performances than those two, even though they're just two iconic figures, obviously.
Right. Let's go back to Kendrick's halftime show here. Kendrick really shut it down last night. I think we can all agree. It was a great half. Q, I just saw your face. Do you disagree with me?
Only thing Kendrick shut down was my mood. I watched that Super Bowl. Not only are the Chiefs getting blown out by halftime, so I'm already bored. I'm expecting K-Dot to lighten the mood. I'm expecting Don't Kill My Vibe, Money Trees, maybe even Poetic Justice without the Drake, just to spite Drake. But nah, I got everything from 2024 and present. I was like, oh my goodness, this is boring. You look out in the crowd, there's no flashing lights. All you see is 3, 4, maybe at most 10 flashlights. Everyone else is on TikTok, Instagram Reels, just waiting for this game to be over. I'm pretty sure some people took the time to go get their snacks, concessions, and wait for the rest of the blowout to continue.
You heard it here first, folks. Quavice is a Drake defender. Now,
Drake, hold on now.
But yeah, that was a slight nitpick I had with the show, that he didn't play anything from his first 3 albums. But I do think the set list met the moment, because this is just a continuation of his journey into music superstardom. He reminds me, going back to Springsteen, he reminds me of Springsteen in the 80s, where yeah, I'm the best pop star around, but I can also be the biggest.
Yep. When it comes to his opinion, Q is not like us. Thank you for joining the show. Make sure to tune in on Thursday for another episode of SportsZone.